Hi, I exist again. I'm streaming. My computer is a computer again. It works and does game things. Please let me know how my audio is. Because I had to rebuild my whole stream situation. I want this to be farther up so that it actually blocks the thing. Alright, that sounds a little better. Okay. Hello, the kids are asleep. How's it going? Alright, so if I do this, it should drop me back into the eye as if I had not left on the space, on the colony ship with Lem and Mia, right? It's Mia? Yeah, Lem and Mina. So, but then I'm supposed to go to the Greenway. Is this the thing? Right. Alright, so I want to do the thing where I leave them, I let them go. Okay, and then they go. So this is not the important part. Oh, no. Just, I wanted to actually let them go, but then go and do the new bit. So this is a little bit of a weird start. Can just bring me back to the eye where I was. Okay. So here's Castor. He's not unhappy. Long thing. I just want to go down and see the new stuff. This should probably prompt the new stuff. I'm told that To activate the DLC, really all you had to do was go to the Greenway, but you had to be a fair amount of the way through the game. As you step out into the passageway, someone barrels into you from behind, sending you stumbling down the corridor. You turn to see an unfamiliar spacer, laden with heavy gear. She steadies herself, staring you down as if daring to respond. Sorry? She adjusts a strap on her shoulder, holding up a hand in recognition before setting off down the corridor. So this is Peak. I'm sorry for her. A second spacer smiles at you apologetically. She's on a mission, and when she's on a mission, they shrug. Not a problem. They smile. You're sweet. Peak! So let's see. Eshe? Let's say Eshe. Eshe stands further down the corridor, glowering at her friend. She chops at the air, pointing down the corridor to whatever end she is rushing to. Peak raises their eyebrows at you. Eshe, please, do you want everyone on the station to hate us? Eshe hardens. They want to hate us. They can hate us. She drops her head. I'm not exactly seeing much love as it is. We're lucky we got through before they set up that damn cordon. Cordon? Peak gestures in your direction. See, they don't even know what you're talking about. The station isn't Hawthorne. Not everyone has to follow some corporate protocol. Eshe sighs. I'm not saying they're part of the administration. She jerks her head in your direction. But I'm saying we need to get these supplies to the Briar before someone starts asking questions. Can I help? Peak smiles slyly. See, Eshe? Help? Isn't that exactly what we need right now? Peak. Eshe rolls her eyes. Peak ignores her. We are with the refugees, the one Havenage has cordoned off from entering the station. Eshe interrupts. The ones that are being quarantined in makeshift vessels that barely made it to the Eye to begin with. The ones that your station administrators have called an existential risk, and are running out of supplies while their right to safety is being debated by people with no stake in their future. She quickly looks away, annoyed at her own outburst. Peak sighs. She's right. People are trapped out there, and they turn to Eshe. We understand that this is a big problem for the Eye. Hundreds of refugees and more ships turning up each cycle. They hold up a hand to stop Eshe interrupting. But Eshe turns away, her burning anger a palpable force in the close quarters of the corridor. They need supplies, and after everything they've been through, the quarantine isn't helping. That's terrible. Eshe looks back at you, her fierceness fading. Peak, please. Eshe gathers herself and the supplies. Eshe, we need help. Just like the refugees needed us, we need the others too. They smile at her. Peak turns to you. Come find us. The climbing Briar is docked at the Broken Spoke, past the Greenway and the Wastes. We have a good view of the cordon, though we are keeping our distance for now. Come help us. They squeeze your hand. Eshe turns to leave, and Peak follows, waving goodbye. A moment later, Eshe shouts down the corridor. Don't bother coming empty-handed. You want to help? Show us. Bring supplies or you don't come at all. And with that, they disappear around the corner, Eshe already picking up speed as Peak calls for her to slow down. A refugee flotilla? Where are they coming from? And why now? Each time you think you begin to understand this place, something changes. So we met a people. Flotilla Aid. This is, my understanding, the big new thing in this DLC. There's supposed to be 3 free DLC, and they're coming out a few months apart. And I think they're supposed to kind of all go in a row. But here, let's move me and this down here so that we can see. I want to move this like that. Oh, that's fine. So I want to be able to see this. I think they're all telling one story, but I honestly don't want to wait 6 months for more Citizen Sleeper because I liked it a lot. So we'll see how this works in terms of playing through. Okay. Eshe and Peak need help gathering supplies for the refugee flotilla quarantined past the Wastes. Will you help them? Okay, so they are... Okay, so here's the climbing Briar. I don't have any actions left today, but I can go here Welcome to Episode Flux. Episode Flux is the first of 3 episodic updates to Citizen Sleeper, telling the story of a refugee flotilla which has arrived at the Eye. Completing the action above will begin that story, but be aware it is intended for late game play. So, I'm in the late game, so I need girolles. I have that. Okay, it let me put in both. Eshe asked you to bring supplies, and fragrant, eye-ground girolle caps seemed like the perfect thing to impress her. Eshe sees you coming up the broken spoke and waves you into the cavernous bay of the climbing briar. Okay. And here's Peek, a cautious XPR spacer. You came! Peek smiles as you walk into the climbing briar's cargo hold, behind a gloomy Eshe. They brought mushrooms. Eshe tosses the mushroom caps onto a crate, raising her eyebrows at Peek. Peek gives her a look. Thank you, Sleeper. They pick one up and sniff at it. Are these edible? Yes. Peek turns the cap over in their fingers before putting it down. We're not so used to fresh produce. Eshe is securing crates as she speaks and doesn't look up. Hawthorne doesn't have much in the way of farming. Hawthorne? The installation we grew up on. Eshe wipes her hands off on a rag. XPR loves to name their property after natural things, but that is about as far as their relationship with plant life goes. XPR? Just an interrogation? She glares. Either way, we're done with that place, which is all you needed to know. Eshe leans back against the crate she was securing. We're gonna need more than a few mushrooms if you want to help those refugees. Why are they trapped? You tell me. It's your station administration that set up the cordon. Peek gives Eshe a look. Sorry, she looks at Peek. I know this isn't on you. Eshe stands and walks over to the mushrooms you brought, placing them into a small container with care. The problem is isn't just getting supplies, it's getting them through to the ships. Can't you just fly around? And get the briar seized for breaching quarantine? No thanks. She laughs. We were lucky we got here before the cordon was set up. That's the only reason we're on this side. Why is there a quarantine? Peek jumps in. The Eye has a closed-loop life support system, just like any orbital installation. Any unfamiliar illness or significantly increased strain on life support could cause a cascading collapse in its systems. Hey, happy Wednesday, Triffity Mats. Good to see you. Eshe scoffs. Are we making excuses for these bureaucrats now? Peek turns. We're being realistic, Eshe. But these people aren't an increased strain. They're living people. Eshe stares at you. Even calling them refugees is just a way of turning a lot of scared, desperate people into a single monolithic group. Eshe slides the container full of mushrooms into one of the cargo holds racks. Look, as much as I'd like to chat, we've still got a lot of space to fill in this hold, so if you're going to help... I think Eshe is trying to say that we need your help and quickly, Peek says, glancing at her. The refugees behind the cordon, they won't be able to hold out indefinitely. We need to get supplies to them in the next 12 cycles, or... Eshe steps forward. Or Havenage will have to bear the responsibility for whatever happens next. What can I do? There's 3 things we still need to secure. Water, food, and scrap components for ship repairs. Eshe gestures to the storage containers around the hold. Water we can find a way to source, or, my preference, just siphon off from the underground reservoirs in the Greenway. Peek raises their eyebrows. Eshe? She ignores them. For food, things can be tricky. Those mushrooms are delicious, I'm sure, but no way we can get enough volume to feed a flotilla. However, I saw an algae stack on the way over. If we can get access... Not more stealing, Eshe, Peek sighs. I didn't say steal. She stares at them indignantly. If we can get access, we can work the stack, harvest some algae for the flotilla. Those stacks turn out vast quantities in short time scales. And the repair components? Peek asks, tentatively. Eshe smiles. Just look around you, Peek. This whole place is made of scrap. She shoots you a glance. And I'm sure the Sleeper has their sources. They can bring them right here. We get everything before time runs out? Perfect. We get most of it? Also good. Either way, in 12 cycles I'm going to take what we have and go. But how will you get through? Eshe shoulders a container. I thought I'd leave that up to you, Peek. They flinch. Are you serious? Eshe, I know we said we would help the flotilla, but at what point... They stop. Take a breath. Take this seriously, Eshe. I don't know the first thing about breaching a quarantine cordon. Maybe not, Eshe looks at you, but they might. They slipped out from an SNR facility, didn't they? Plus they've been here longer than us. You were always trying to get me to find help. Well, here it is. She gestures at you. Help. Pete glances between the two of you. I swear it up, they sigh. I need to think this one through. Meet me at the cordon in a couple cycles, Sleeper. Maybe we can figure something out. Meanwhile, Eshe meets your eye. You can help me acquire the supplies. Discreetly. She smiles. We have to keep this one quiet, keep Havenage out of the loop. Once they get suspicious, this is all over for us. This all suddenly feels and seems a little too real, too dangerous. You've only just found your feet on the eye. This is not a time for causing trouble. My Sleeper, in fact, has more than found their feet. Come find us. We will be out there trying to pull this all together. Eshe goes back to the hold to start packing up the container. Peek, come help me. Peek glances back at her. Sleeper, look, we didn't choose this either. They lower the voice. Help us finish this. We've set up a base camp on the Broken Spoke. You're welcome to rest there in any of the cots while we work on this. They smile. We're in this together. Peek! Eshe shouts, and they walk back into the hold to help with the container. As you leave the climbing briar, you look out at the broken edge of the eye's right wing, of the eye's ring, where Havenage's cordon blinks with tiny red lights. What are you getting yourself into? It's DLC. I'm getting myself into DLC. So, I have stabilizer, but my condition is good. I have a lot of scrap components. That's for condition. I will need some food soon. So it means 11 more cycles to get all the things that they need. Okay, so I definitely need food, but I have some good dice today. I suppose I can sunbathe, right? Because I have a let's keep a 1 just in case we're supposed to do hacking for the flotilla. Can we see the ships? Are they out there somewhere? Bay, Gimbal Lounge, Descender Car. Let's see. So we cross back to the Greenway. Farm, Stacks Reservoir, water processing. Okay. So, can hack sensors to reduce the alert. Okay. Algae stack. That's just working, right? Negotiate access. Engage is not something I'm great at, so let's throw a 6. You and Eshe roll up your sleeves and help with the tank cycling. As you do, you speak with the farmers about the refugees. Okay. And I have scrap, right? Yeah. So I have a lot of scrap. But I need 8 to be able to. So it's all at once is what they're doing with this. So endure. So I'm doing really well on that. Reservoir. Shroomies. Harvest mushrooms. Okay. So I can get 2 more out of this yield. Let's go back to here and use that 6 to further negotiate access. Same thing, so we're at 4 of 6 here, and we need some energy, so let's go across here. We're going to go to the bar or to Memphis and eat. I'm very good on that, so rations. Let's eat a little better and go to Memphis. Your mouth stings as your sensorium sends warning signals over and over. This is the good stuff. So, very good on energy. And now we can head back to Greenway, crash with that duo, and keep going. Peak's plan. Hold. Okay. And soon I'm supposed to go help Peak try to figure out how to get past the cordon. So we need to keep an eye on that to make sure it doesn't go too long before we're progressing that. Try to do that first so we can limit the number of things we're needing to keep track of. So that's a 5. Not a 100% chance of success. Success, but we lost some energy. What that means, we can input 8 scrap components. That's it. These components should be enough to cover the most of the basic repairs the flotilla needs, you hope. Okay. Food, water, and components. So, the Briar. You look over the pile of scrap components lying in the Briar. You look around, the bay is empty. Eshe and Peak, either elsewhere on the station or on the bridge a couple of levels up. You begin sorting through the pile, separating out useful components and boxing them by use. You don't recognize anything you find, but before long you get into the rhythm of sorting. As you do, your mind starts to drift, your attention being drawn into the dark corners of the bay. The Briar is in surprisingly good condition, considering that Hawthorne and XPR must have been operating for decades by now. The marks of care are everywhere, from the delicate patch jobs polished to meld into the original finish, or the carefully bound wiring running through custom trunking. Eshe loves this ship, that much is clear. Something catches your eye in one of the dark corners. A matte black stack. Matte black stack! That's a tricky wicket. A matte black stack of crates you hadn't spotted before. They are sleek and compact, tucked away behind some of the bigger, more worn containers. This is obviously something that's going to make these two more complicated, right? You put the components away and go over to the sleek crates. You run your hands across their textured surface, but there's a little hint of what lies inside in the opaque metal casing. Then you see it, a yellow symbol, embossed into the far side of the crate, a universal sigil used by spacers, corporations, and manufacturers alike. It's one you have seen throughout your time as a sleeper. Its meaning all too familiar. Explosive contents. You hear a hiss, and Eshe comes up through the bay's lock. She barely registers your presence, nodding at you as she passes. Sleeper? She busies herself with some task at the back of the bay. This may not be a great idea, but I'm going to ask about the crates. Ashley doesn't turn around from wherever she's busy with. Just more supplies, Sleeper, like everything else here. You can't think of anything else to ask, but you sense that the atmosphere is now somehow shifted. You quickly finish up the sorting and slip out, waving goodbye to her back as you do. I kind of feel like you should read me into what you're doing here, IMO. Alright, up to +1 in engage. That will help with negotiating access to... yep, to this. That gives me... no, that's not enough. Right. Let's lock this in. And we got a little bit of energy, looks like. So... algae takes time to grow. Okay. So we did that pretty quickly. We can accelerate growth, however. So let's try some of that. Nope. You accidentally overfeed the stack, and you have to manually cycle out the entire water supply. You and Eshe are dead on your feet by the end. Well, that's not great. Fortunately, I can afford some nice takeout from Memphis. And again. Let's see what. Am I supposed to go up this stack? What? Where am I meeting you? Guess I can harvest more mushrooms, right? So not getting the best results here, but I only have so many dice. Complete active scenes. Where are my active scenes? Here we go. Ah, here's Peak. And there's the flotilla. Sleeper! Peak catches your attention from the shadowy corner they were leaning against. Any trouble getting up here? This place is huge. It certainly is. Havenage have been busy. Come, take a look at this. They beckon you over to a nearby window, which looks across the ruined rig to the blinking red lights of the Havenage cordon. Cordon's temporary structures, a net of metal struts meant to detect and dissuade any ships from entering or leaving the flotilla, jut out the back, and all around the tugs flit, securing them in place and tending to the red blinking drones that demark the quarantine. It's an impressive and worrying sight. What do you think? Peak interrupts your thoughts. How would you get through? Use one of the tugs. As an escort, you mean? I doubt we could fit all the supplies on one of those tugs, but if it seemed like the Briar was being officially escorted through the cordon. Peak squints at the red lights. Then we'd be stuck inside. Peak turns away from the window and rubs their forehead. Eshe has really wrapped us up into something here, hasn't she? The question is spoken under their breath, and they don't seem to expect an answer. The silence grows. Maybe we try all three? I like it. At least we should prepare as many ways as we can. The way I see it, there are three parts to making it through that cordon. They gesture out the window at the strange structure. Deception, distraction, and speed. We'll need all of them for a clean passage, though. Deception means tricking the cordon security into thinking we're meant to be there. Maybe a tugboat escort would work? Anything makes the Briar look official. Distraction, meanwhile, will be all about diverting attention so no one looks too hard at what the Briar is doing. If we can create a gap in the cordon's scanning and deterrent systems, that should keep them busy. Finally, speed will mean making sure the Briar is ready to roll. Perhaps we can do a little work on the ship to get it ready? She certainly wouldn't mind. They lean back from the window. How does that sound? Risky. Well, they smile. Yes, there's always going to be risk. That's how this works. You've got to be on board with that. Peak looks down at their slate. 10 cycles left. They glance out the window at the cordon nervously. 10 cycles to gather the supplies and prep this plan. It's tight. Very tight. Peak looks at you. If this goes wrong, Peak sighs. Just get out, okay? They squeeze your shoulder. I'll follow Eshe anywhere, but you don't need to get dragged down with us. It won't come to that. Peak brightens up a little. Of course, but just keep it in mind. Let's get to it. Peak stretches. I'll tell Eshe about the improvements to the Briar, and the rest, let's explore the cordon as best we can and look for openings. Peak smiles. I have no idea what guardian angel sent you to us, Sleeper. Peak smiles, but I'm very glad they did. So this is cool because in my canon run that I finished and went up on YouTube, I went with Lemon Mina and was with them. Staying, you have to be like, oh, okay, well, why are you staying? Maybe the Sleeper is staying because they feel that their life is on the station. Maybe they feel like they still have other people to help. And then, ta-da, here's more people to help. Intercept comms, blended with a crew. Cordon intel. Okay. Dice. We already have the scrap. We have the stuff. The water is, the algae is processing. Accelerate growth. Well, energy is not a problem because I have money. So that means that this is coming faster. Water. So, interface. Well, I don't need this hack the sensors yet. So let's get that. Wow, really? On a 6, you get 1. Yikes. You find an outlet valve behind a web of sensors. Delicately, you begin filling a tank. Eshe gives you a thumbs up. This is working. Okay, so one at a time. That's not great. I'm probably going to use a stabilizer to max myself out to 5 dice. In order to have better chance of getting everything done, because there's just a lot of things to do. We're going to use my reroll. Hey, that's better. 5. Cordon intel. So I'm going to use this over here because I have interface +2. That takes me to 6. The cordon buzzes with radio transmissions and data packets. Intercepting them will help you give you a sense of how things run here. Okay, so that fills 2, which is great. Stabilizer. Let's do that first thing. Put 1 stabilizer. So then I'll have 5 dice next time. And this is ready now. Yep. Okay. So harvest algae. Now you can freely harvest edible algae to feed to the ship, to the refugee flotilla. Even Eshe admits it has a pleasant earthy taste. Let's see, how about we get 2 per tick on this? Okay. We're +1. Okay, not great. Here to use my 6. Where do I want to use my 6? Let's use it over here. Okay, and let's re-roll the 2. It becomes a 1, unfortunately. And why don't I... So this is energy, right? No, I'm getting high for member because I don't have a membership there yet. Because I didn't do that plot line in this run. It's fun. I may do it if I, if after the second and third episodes come out, I decide I want to start a new run to kind of do those. Then I can show off some of the other plot lines. Because the cost, what I might lose is energy, and energy I'm fine on. Yep. After a lot of manual cycling and precise feed distribution in the stack, you double the growth rate for this cycle. It's exhausting. Okay. So that's that, and then let's go and ZM this one more time. Still have a lot of things to do. We'll see how we go. Pretty good rolls for today. So we've got interface plus 2, which takes us to 5. Tap into a broadcast detailing the order of operations for new crews assigned to the cordon. This is exactly what you need. Alright, let's do this one more. Let's see if we can... what it looks like. Okay, we got medium success. Looks like. Okay, we're going to go back over here and let's get some algae. See if we can do something that's plus 2. We have engineer hack sensors. We don't need to hack the sensors yet. Condition. That's rough, but let's see. We need to do this 4 more times after this. We got Havenage alert, but we can hack the sensors after that. I'm very glad that they give you this place to sleep over here. It's a good idea from a design perspective, so that you're not scrolling away from this part of the station that you're engaging with a lot. At least not unless you need to for other things. Okay. Hey, it's Moritz. Hi, Moritz. Sleeper, long time. Moritz is smiling at you when you leave. Clearly happy to see you again. Moritz, good to see you. Same. He rubs his hands on his jacket. How you been? Working hard. I bet, he grins. Well, you're always welcome to hang out at the bay if you want. He glances around. Actually, that's where, that's what I'm here about. I know Bliss said she didn't want to take any more big jobs, but she's changed her mind or something, he grins. Because now we have someone looking for a refit of their ship out in our bay. You would not believe it. They want their entire ship disarmed. Cutting out defense arrays, weapon lockers, ship-to-ship countermeasures, the whole lot. He leans in. We'll be able to start an arms dealership with all the hardware we'll have up there when we're done. He laughs. Anyway, it's a massive job, and we need some hands. Bliss said to come and get you. So come on up. Bliss is waiting on you to accept the job. He pauses. It'll be good to have you up there again. He grins. Like old times. I wonder, because that's probably not for the ship that they're taking out. But maybe it is, so I'm going to go investigate just in case. I don't know that I have the time to do that immediately, but let's at least talk to Bliss. When you enter the bay, it is weirdly quiet. Moritz must be out on some errand, and maybe Bliss is prepping the kit? It's Ankita. Ah. So this is the other crew member. Yeah. This is that mercenary who ended up killing the other sleeper. Sleeper. Ankita is drifting at one side of the bay. You missed her completely when you came in. The idea of not seeing Ankita when you entered a room would have seemed unlikely to you several cycles ago. But seeing her without her armor, she seems smaller, less imposing. What are you doing here? I was about to ask you the same thing. She kicks off from the wall and comes a little closer. So what is this? She asks. Come to avenge Ashton or his sleeper? Or just looking for another payout? Her anger is familiar, but quieter than before. Restrained. I don't want to fight. Then why are you here? She looks away, and you can tell her anger isn't directed at you in particular. It radiates off her like fire. You better be ready to sign, comes a shout from the bay entrance, because I've got my best repair tech coming up here especially, and they're gonna... Bliss glides in and suddenly stops herself when she sees you and Ankita standing off. Oh, Sleeper, you're already here. Miss Cassetta, this is the tech I was telling you about. Best on the hip. She stops, looking between the two of you. Wait, do you know each other? You and Ankita look at each other. So, here's the question of how upset is my Sleeper about this? I feel like my Sleeper has been pretty forgiving. But that was no small thing. I'm curious to see what a more neutral, positive take looks like in terms of maybe trying to push Ankita toward a less terrible life. So let's say we work together. Bliss squints at you and at you both before continuing. Bliss produces a slate. Now, Miss Cassetta, if you'd like to sign our damage waiver here, we can start on the decommissioning. She looks at you. My tech here is eager to get started, as am I. Ankita scrawls her signature across the slate. Thank you. Bliss pauses. And everything is okay with the special payment terms we discussed? She gives Ankita a strange smile. All fine, says Ankita, giving you another hard look. Then she kicks off and drifts to the entrance. I'll be in the gimbal, she says, and leaves. Special payment terms? She looks over. Bliss looks over her glasses at you. Look, Sleepy, there's something I have to tell you. She glances around again. What is she so nervous about? This isn't exactly a typical job. Miss Cassetta, Ankita, she gives you a knowing look, doesn't have the chits to pay us, so we've made a special arrangement. She sighs. I'm leaving. Leaving? Keep it down. I haven't told Moritz yet. She looks down, just waiting to break it to him. Don't you tell him either. She stares hard at you. I'll tell him when I'm ready, and I don't want him getting worried about Ankita's history. He can be very protective. You should tell him. Look, all I care is that she is headed for the Starward Belt. She looks out of the bay. That's where I'm headed. She turns back to face you. Also, I wanted to ask, she asks, she stops, unsure, if you'd like to come with us? I can't. She interrupts before you answer. I know things have been hard for you on the Eye, and you've helped me so much. I asked Ankita if she'd carry two of us, and she said yes. Moritz will take over the bay anyway, although if you say you're welcome to help him run it. I just thought, she sighs, you might be in need of a fresh start as much as I am. She turns away nervously. Think about it anyway. The berth is there. We've got to finish the first job anyway. And with that, she kicks away and heads to the racks before you can offer an answer. Moments later, Moritz enters with a new cutting torch for the disarming of the ambergris. The Starward Belt. You push your thoughts to the back of your mind. Time to get to work. So I'm guessing that this part with Ankita and Bliss is actually part of the core game. I just didn't get to it because I finished that last beat of Bliss's story, like Bliss and Moritz's story, right before I got on the ship with Lem and Mina. Though in this situation it's showing up like it is part of the DLC. But this stuff with the cordon is time gated. So I'm going to focus on that for now. There's so much game in this game. It's great. Algae stack. Okay, so +1. That should... Are you one at a time? Hey, look at that. So we've got all the food. You're leaning against the metal crates you have loaded up with algae, packed and dried into bright green pucks. Eshe hops onto one beside you, flexing her arching back. Is this enough? Eshe squints at you as if you just interrupted her train of thought. It's a look you've become familiar with. It doesn't matter either way. This is what we've got. She sighs, rubbing the back of her neck. In these past cycles, working the algae stack with Eshe, you've had little insight into her mind. She rarely seems happy to start a conversation, but is always eager to end one. Despite this, you feel like something has grown between you, something like silent trust. The kind that tends to seed itself in the fertile soil of hard but necessary work. There's been something I've been meaning to ask. Eshe raises her head cautiously. Go on? Why escape XPR? Eshe pauses, her protective instinct fighting with the trust you built. You can see her begin to shrug the question off, then she stops, rethinks, sighs. What you need to understand, Sleeper, is that Erlen's Eye wasn't the only place where the Solheim collapse happened. Sure, Hawthorne, where we grew up, was an XPR installation, but that didn't screen it from Solheim going under. Actually, Solheim was the only reason XPR were even here. She pauses, hesitant to get into the whole story, but wanting to offer something. She flinches, correcting herself. They're a service corp, you understand? They set up outposts in the surrogate systems like this to offer refueling, logistics, and maintenance supports to bigger companies with extradition contracts is different. Extraction contracts. She gestures to the eye around her. Like Solheim. When Solheim went bust, XPR lost their client. And Hawthorne, well, we lost everything. We became an outpost tasked with just holding on. Keep the refueling platforms running, they said. Keep the outposts stable. Hold on to our claim. She rubs at her head, as if recalling all this was somehow physically painful. Do you know what it's like to spend your entire life in a place with no future? A place that only exists to hold a legal claim to a piece of territory, to shore up a breach of contract negotiations between two corporations? It's like living in a... She searches for the word. Her eyes jumping back and forth. In a grave. She clenches her hands. So if you're looking for the answer to why questions, that's your answer. We, Peek and I, know what it's like to be forgotten, to be locked out. She stares hard at the side of the stack, the algae whirling against the glass in beautiful patterns, and she doesn't look away. The silence extends, and you realize the conversation is over. Eshe seems angry, not at you, but with herself, for even voicing such ideas. After a while, you stand and start to load the crates onto the powerful cargo trolley that Eshe will take back to the Briar. As you do, you try to catch her eye, but she avoids it, soothing herself instead with the comforting simplicity of physical work. Okay. And we have food, we need water, and I need to do the sneaky. So let's do more water. Okay. Now I'm going to go back over here because I don't want to forget this part. Interface +2. Okay, we only needed one to fill there. Coordinate operations, crew canteen, Havenage hangar. Slice thrusters. Tugs have a powerful suite of ion thrusters for rapid maneuvering. If you can sneak in and slice them off, you'll have a significant upgrade for the Briar. Okay. Speed. So, Havenage suspicion. Convince a crew. With division rife among the tug crews, gaining support for a supply shipment will just be a case of picking the right crew and approaching them discreetly. Okay, and cordon operations. Sabotage sensors. Some careful sabotage to the cordon systems would create a sensor gap that will allow the Briar to bypass the automatic quarantine systems. So what's the thing I'm worst at? So I just wanted to use this 6 on a thing where I have a lower bonus because I'm going to reroll this, and a 4 plus 2 becomes a 6. So I go over here, and then I can do this. You carefully code a timed emergency maintenance program to take out some of the sensors on the cycle Eshe is planning to make her run. Okay, so that's a lot of things to do, but the only thing over here I still need to do is get water. And we have 5 days left? 6 days left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, this would be a lot harder if I were not already in a situation where I'm good on money and stabilizer, and where money means that I'm fine on energy. But speaking of energy, we're going to go over here, and we're going to go back to see Memphis and get some of the shroomies. Sensors to bring that down. Convince a crew. 5 is a pretty good chance of success, but we got one Havenage suspicion. Let's convince a crew. This is the upgrade. Engineer +1 takes us to 6. Okay. Sabotage sensors. But then that suspicion is up to 2. And we'll get 1 fewer die next time. Or maybe we'll get this is the last day we'll get the 5th die. Nope. But 2 6s, 5 and a 2 is a pretty good day. Alright, let's go see if we can we finish the water today and then we don't have to think about it. The water. Eshe. Tucked into a service corridor deep below the reservoir, Eshe is double-checking the seals on the water tanks loaded into the motorized trolley. Though you're far enough away from any thoroughfares to not worry about being overheard, you both still speak in hushed tones. All good? Eshe nods silently and hits the ignition on the trolley to start it moving. You take the other side of the trolley and walk it up the wide service corridor with its flickering lights and Solheim detritus. You doubt it gets used by Havenage, at least that's the hope. You glance across at Eshe, her face a mask of determination as she guides the trolley along. Maybe some conversation will make this journey go a little easier. How'd you meet Peak? Eshe pauses, a little surprised by her question. She glances back down the tunnel, but in this deserted passage she can hardly keep up the pretense of silence. We grew up together. She answers quickly and turns back to the trolley, but she can tell you're expecting her to add more. She seems to gather herself for an answer, not wanting to ignore you, but trying instead to get her answer straight in her head. Our outpost, Hawthorne, is not an easy place to grow up. The administrators keep a tight hold of everything. She rolls her eyes, even though they are trapped in the same decaying installation as anyone else. Peak, she pauses. Peak found it harder than most. She pauses again, judging her words. I stepped in to help them out. Silence descends again, but you can feel the wheels turning in Eshe's mind as the creaking wheels of the trolley take you along the corridor. Peek isn't the most practical of people. They used to be, well, they needed someone to teach them to look out for themselves. Stand up for themselves. That was me. After that, I couldn't get rid of them. Eshe stops talking, but you see her eyes have lit up, and you imagine she is recalling some moment or other from her and Peek's past. You both reach a wide bulkhead doorway and have to stop to shimmy the trolley over the edge. When you're done, Eshe turns to you. I'm good from here. Head back. With that, she is gone, moving off into the dark tunnel ahead. You watch her go and then turn around to walk the distance back to the staircase you entered from, the tunnel humming around you as you do. But as you walk, you try to piece together Eshe's past. But all you have are glimpses of a person she once was. She seems to prefer it that way. Hey, that's a drive. But it costs 2 to get either of these. So, oh, I do have 2. I don't need either of these. So maybe I'm going to wait and get engineer plus 2. How many days do I have left? 4. Alright, let's try to make sure that we get one of these finished. Not going to do me a lot of good. Let's check. Yeah, there's no hacking stuff. So I guess we'll just do this. It's a drone! A rapid burst of movement catches your attention. A drone, its fins adjusting as it hovers in place, floats in the corridor. Hello? The drone shifts a little but does not respond. The drone buzzes closer and a voice gurgles out of its speaker, distorted and strange. Sleeper, come to the coordinate. We need to speak. Who is this? The drone clicks some words and the recording starts playing again. Sleeper, come to the coordinate. We need to speak. You move closer, but the drone bobs away to a safe distance. But as it does, you see the HA of Havenage emblazoned on its side. Could this be Fang's drone? Satisfied it has delivered the message, the drone rotates and accelerates away as rapidly as it arrived. You stare at it as it disappears from sight, hoping for some insight that escapes you. To the cordon, then. As you enter the passage that leads through the cordon, a flash of movement catches your eye, the drone. It stops to make sure you've seen it and then flits into a side passage, leading to a set of narrow stairs. You climb through a dark shaft, the drone stopping at each landing to check you are following. Despite its lack of expression, there's something overbearing about the way the drone waits, impatiently realigning its fins in sequence. After a long climb, you come out onto an observation platform. The cordon and the vast, ramshackle refugee ships beyond fill your vision. The scale seems impossible, and you immediately feel small and naive for even thinking you could affect the situation. Something shifts nearby. The drone again? A woman is stood at the window, at the edge of your vision. You aren't surprised you didn't notice her. She too seems impossibly small in the shadow of the flotilla. The drone buzzes by her shoulder, and she turns. Sleeper? Sorry for all the cloak and dagger nonsense. She nods at the drone. But I have never regretted being cautious. She smiles a tight smile and holds out a hand. I'm Helene. The tight smile holds, but the drone keeps its single eye fixed on you. The effect is a little unnerving. Look. She glances around the empty observation deck as if checking for potential eavesdroppers. Let's be straight with each other. I know about your plans, and She cuts in before you can respond. I understand your motives. You look at her. You look at her in her overalls, the yellow markers, the HA symbol. You've been on the eye long enough to recognize a Havenage member when you see them. You're Havenage. Yes, I mean, I expect that is obvious. The tight smile again. I hope you won't hold that against me. She glances around nervously again and moves a little closer. This entire situation, I'm not here to defend it. She glances back at the flotilla. No one is happy about this. Especially not the refugees. She sighs. I'm not your enemy here, no matter what you think. She pauses. Sleeper, tell me something. What does Havenage mean to you? Hardenhurst. She squints at you. That was unfortunate. But you should know it was one of our own who exposed Harden, and that has been dealt with. Havenage is used to being criticized. In some ways, we invite it. Our members are free to bring up grievances at any meeting, to propose new structures and approaches. She shifts her weight impatiently. As a counselor, it is my duty to listen to them. That's why I was elected by the members. We are an imperfect system, yes, and each counselor, each member, each representative can be flawed and worse. She looks down. But we keep this place running. That is what we do. And the non-members? There are paths to membership, and we cannot force everyone in the station to join us. What do you expect? We are an association of individuals. We cannot always account for the needs of those outside that structure. She turns and looks out at the flotilla, no matter how much we might wish to. Can the Eye take in thousands of refugees safely? I don't know. This place is a ruin, Sleeper. What do you think the council discusses? The price of Girol? We make plans to keep this place spinning, to keep life support working, to ensure... Helene's slate chirps, and a grim look passes across her face as she sees the notification. She looks tired, the screen light casting her rigid expression in a pale glow. Sleeper, I didn't bring you here to explain how Havenage works. I came to talk about your plan to cross the cordon, breach the quarantine, and supply the flotilla. She looks directly at you. Stay silent. I know you think you are helping the flotilla, but you cannot do this. Right now, halfway across the ring, one of a countless series of debates are being held. These debates are to evaluate the potential harm that would be caused if the refugees of the flotilla are let to enter the station. These debates are at a standstill. Helene walks to the window. Too many in the Havenage Council think of the flotilla as a threat. After the recent events, a hardline group has emerged. Protective, selfish. They seek only to benefit the members. In their mind, the flotilla is a danger to life on the Eye. If you're caught crossing the cordon and breaching quarantine, it will only strengthen the hardline counselor's case. Criminals who stole a ship from XPR undermining the security of the station? She shakes her head. It's exactly what they want. That's your problem. It's the flotilla's problem. If they're ruled a threat, the cordon stays strong and the quarantine will never be lifted. She sighs deeply. And those XPR spacers you're running with, Sleeper, do you know anything about them? More than I know about you. She looks at you pleadingly. Let's change that, Sleeper. Why do you think the refugee flotilla came here now? Something is happening in the system. Something is pushing people out of colonies and outposts that have survived since the Solheim collapse. We need to be ready for whatever is coming. Ready to protect the Eye. I know the Eye means something to you. I know there's a reason you're still here. Help me protect it. Helene fixes you with a strong look. Persuade those spacers that this is the wrong move, that they will get caught and the flotilla will be locked down, that Havenage will be delivered to those with the worst instincts. Forget the suicidal supply run with people you barely know. Help me fight for the Eye. Why don't you stop them? If I expose the plan, it's the same as if it goes ahead and they're caught. Every way I look at it, the Eye gets compromised, the quarantine justified, the hardliners get their scapegoat. Don't offer the excuses the hardliners need to lock the flotilla out forever, or to persuade the members they are the safest pair of hands. She looks at you imploringly. Please. You look back at her and the flotilla behind, and you sense a desperation in her plea. A notification breaks the silence. Shit. She rapidly scrolls through pages of data. Sleeper, I need to go. She looks torn. Think about this, please. Talk to the spacers, help them see reason. And she quickly leaves the observation deck before you have time to respond. You stay for a moment, watching the lights of the tugs in the flotilla, and wonder what it feels like to be on one of those ships, so close to your destination, and yet so far from it. And then you think of Havenage Council Chamber across the Eye, where the right of these people to find safety is being debated. You shiver, and then you two are gone, back into the stairwell in the cold dark below. So, the political, the Earth political parallels here are, the one for me as a U.S. person is anti-immigration settlement sentiment at the southern U.S. border, where lots of refugees and other people from Central and South America whose lives were disturbed by crap that is ripple effects or direct action by the USA via proxy wars, CIA action, so on and so forth. Those folks wanting to be able to get away from bad situations. And so the don't give the other side what they want is not an argument that is very compelling to me, because having lived in the USA the last few years, fascists will turn anything into a pro-fascist argument. It doesn't matter. Logic is not a part of the conversation. The scapegoating against refugees here, it basically doesn't matter what I do. Yeah, the hardliners are going to be hardliners. They're going to scapegoat, demonize, and use that terrifying other to consolidate and or gain power. So, all right, I can't talk to Helene here. So Helene's like liberal reformer angle, maybe she's a liberal reformer. All she gave me is convince them to not do this. She did not present any positive case on what she could do to help anybody. Yeah, and as the kids are asleep, I'm guessing fascists, they do not care about logic, they care about emotion, and people affected by their propaganda won't magically be swayed by truth. Yeah. So we have 4 ticks left for the upgrade, 4 left for the sensor gap, and 4 left for this. So I've conveniently I've spread all of my my efforts out. So sensors, that's going to be the most important thing here. Only one at a time? Yikes. All right. Something with a 5 plus 2. Did I have a plus 2 here? I did have a plus 2 here. Okay, we reroll this. It becomes a 3. And then I go here. Nope. I failed, and therefore suspicion went up, which is not great. So I'm going to use one of my stabilizers to go back up to full here. And then we're going to go forward one more day. I am going to see what the options for, like, convince Eshe and Peak not to do this. But maybe Peak is coming to me. Sleeper. Peak is waiting for you when you leave, but they look different. Pale, drawn out. You need to come up to the briar now. They don't meet your eye. What happened? Not here. Come to the ship. We'll be waiting. Peak walks away. Don't take long. And with that, they disappear around the corner, leaving you anxious and confused. So yeah, like, are they terrorists, according to the Havenage? Probably. Did they blow something up on Hawthorne? Almost certainly. So let's see what's up with them. As you walk into the climbing briar's cavernous bay, now filled with crates and containers, Eshe is waiting for you. In front of her, sliced open, with its inside scattering across the top of a heavy-duty crate, is an object you recognize, Helene's drone. You freeze. Come in, quick. Peak nudges you into the bay, looking behind you before sealing the entranceway. You have to start being careful. You move closer to the container, your eyes on the drone splayed out in pieces, some parts of it hooked up to a slate that Peak picks up and begins tapping away at. Eshe looks up from the dissection. We caught it buzzing around nearby, heading for the ship. She leans over and taps the HA sigil of the removed pieces of plating. It's a Havenage spy. We think we got it before it sent data back, but we can't be sure. Peek looks at you nervously. Eshe comes in. Have you noticed anyone watching you? Any drones like this? Anyone following you up on the Briar? I've seen this drone. Eshe frowns. Following you? I met its owner. Eshe pauses for a while, Peek looking between the two of you. Explain, Sleeper, Eshe says quietly. Tell him about Helene. You explain that you met with Helene at the court, and you tell Eshe and Peek about what she told you. The Havenage Council are debating lifting the quarantine, but they are blocked by the hardliners. You speak faster and faster, but before you can finish, Eshe walks away in anger, and then comes back again, her eyes burning. What is this, Sleeper? Have you understood nothing from what we told you? She paces in front of you. Havenage are not your friends. They are administrators, which means they're only interested in their own power, their own survival, their own causes. They divide people as easily as sorting livestock. The greater good of their work demands it. The wider project of the station, the colony, the nation. Her eyes are wide as she speaks, her anger barely contained. I don't like either of these choices. Eshe laughs. Help what, Sleeper? Undo the mess of her own creation? She only wishes to placate you so you'll compromise. So you'll do what is acceptable, not what is right. Let me tell you something, Sleeper, Eshe says, her rage hardening into pain. When people become administrators, they give up something. Some part of being human, being an equal among others, goes away. They start talking about greater good, the systems, the ways in which their hands are tied, or their process is compromised. My mother was the administrator of Hawthorne, and I have seen what it did to her. That noble higher calling, it is toxic. People should never have the chance to decide the fate of others. And those that do so at the cost of their humanity. So this is, at best, Eshe expressing a form of anarchism, like the political philosophy anarchism, as opposed to like Hollywood anarchism of like, just burn everything, dude! I feel like the Eshe's argument is a bit overplayed. Understandably from her background. Peek tries to cut in, but Eshe holds up a hand. Don't start, Peek. Don't ask me to be reasonable or calm down. Thousands of people are desperate out there. Being reasonable will only prolong their suffering. You're right. Eshe doesn't move for a moment, then she lifts a hand to rub her temples. She goes back to say something, then stops. She walks back into the bay and starts checking the straps on the crates. I will make the run. She yanks on a strap. No more distractions. Sleeper, Peek looks torn. You have to understand, this is personal for Eshe. I know. Peek looks away, then at Eshe. I don't know, Sleeper. I just don't know what to do. You glance around the bay of the Briar, the walls seeming closer every second. This whole thing is closing in on you, and the question is, where do you want to be when it all collapses? You look at Peek. And what do you think, Sleeper? Peek rubs their forehead. Should we do this thing or not? Yes. Peek nods. Okay then. They squeeze your shoulder. Onward. They slip away to help Eshe, leaving you alone to replay the conversation in your head. A certain kind of grim determination settling in the room. Last chance to prepare. So we have 2 days. Not that. So one of these. Good. I guess we should do this. So let's do something I don't have +2 in. Do I have +2 in everything? And all the stuff that I need for this? No, let's do that. And then we roll the dice. Hey, look, there's a 6. So sabotage sensors, that gets to a 6. Carefully code a timed emergency. Oh, so it's the same thing. So that's one thing down. Peek is waiting for you when you slip out of the operations center, nervously poking at their small slate. Sleeper, they hiss. I followed what you were doing on the network. Incredible work. How do you do that? It comes naturally. Peek smiles. I can't tell if that's modesty or just the truth. Interfacing skills like that? It's almost worth being. They stop themselves. Sorry, I didn't mean. Don't worry about it. Peek nods. You and Peak quietly slip into the main walkway and work your way back into the public areas of the cordon. Havenage has had to respond quickly to the flotilla's arrival, and that means a lot of contractors and spacers walking through these corridors. You blend in easily enough. I haven't really met a sleeper before, Peak begins, as you might have guessed. They smile nervously. Hawthorne is an XPR service outpost, and since the collapse, no one came for refueling or repairs anymore, so my generation has never met anyone outside the company. We heard about sleepers, they nod in your direction, from data packets that come through XPR every once in a while. They usually contain news along with corporate propaganda, but the reports were light on the details. SNRP have kept the sleeper program pretty quiet anyway, and I think XPR are only interested in telling their employees about it because it made living in our company town look like a good life, in comparison to being a piece of corporate property. They freeze. Sorry, I didn't mean they look down. I'm just not sure how to talk about this stuff. Maybe don't talk about it? That's fair. They look away. Sorry again. You walk on a little further, the walkway becoming busier. You both relax a little more. You go with the flow of people. I just want to say I think I understand. They begin again. Clearly this has been on their mind. I understand the need to escape, to get free of it all. They laugh at themselves. The structures, the systems, the company horizons in a company town. They stare ahead. The small places, small corridors, small people. They look away. The slow death it brings. That's it. They turn to you. I get why you signed up to be a sleeper, and why you escape from that too. You try to form words, but you can't. There's altogether too much running through your head. But you look at Peak and they look at you, and it seems okay for now. You walk in silence again. Each of you in their own thoughts, but moving together through space nonetheless. After a while, you come to the entrance of the cordon, where handfuls of workers and crews filter in and out through the two huge loading bay doors. Peak stops. Okay, they pause. I'm heading back to the Briar. Once again, incredible work on the sensors. That blind spot you created, that should give us a real advantage. See you soon. They head off, disappearing into the crowd almost immediately, outrunning their own nervousness. Is that a drive? Does not look like it. So, slice thrusters. So 2 ticks left on that. We can take that risk because we lowered suspicion. Okay, 3 ticks left for that. And we have 2 more days. Possibly 1 more day. I think it's 2. Next day is day 11. So I don't have another source of stabilizer right now, it looks like. But I can use scrap to repair myself. It's just more time resource intensive. Because I have this, right? +1 condition. So let's start with the crew. Just might be able to do this. Hey, look at that. You notice a crew sat apart from the others. Apparently they've been discussing smuggling supplies through the cordon themselves. Nice. You meet Peak leaning in the corridor of the canteen their typically unassuming way. It occurs to you as you approach that Peak must have had some practice at staying invisible. All good? They look up from their slate. That crew you were talking to, they nod to the group leaving the caravan. Will they join us? That's what they say. You aren't sure? Peak looks back at them as they disappear into the corridors of the installation. Looks like we'll have to take them at their word either way. Peak beckons for you to follow as they peel off the wall and head into the walkway overlooking the cordon. Glad you're here to talk to them into it. Thanks for coming by, Triffid. See you later. Peak says, glad you're here to talk to them into it. I never had much of a way with people. Peak smiles and looks away quickly as you walk. I mean, that's nice. Why's that? Well, Peak pauses. Maybe it'd be more accurate to say people have never had much of a way with me. They squint, irritated by their odd turn of phrase. What I mean is, people have caused me a lot of trouble. I've had people hate me without knowing a thing about me. They tuck their hair behind an ear. I'm sure you know the feeling. I do. Peak glances at you. Sorry to hear that. It marks you, am I right? It does. Peak nods. You both walk in silence for a moment. Not an awkward silence, but one of solidarity. Peak leads you around a corner, heading back to the main cordon accessway. I appreciate you coming in and helping us out on this sleeper. I'm talking to the crew and, well, you know. Maybe after this plan is done, we can talk properly. They keep looking ahead, and you realize they're nervous. I'd like that. Peak smiles, looking down at their feet. That's settled then, they say to the floor. I better report the news to Eshe. We have ourselves a tug expert. Peak stops at an intersection. See you soon, sleeper. And please, take care. And with that, they drift away, their head down, their gait changing as they do, their practiced invisibility shrouding them like a cape. And slice those thrusters. You manage to hit the hangar during a shift change, and the whole place is empty. You come away with a thruster set with little effort. Peak grins as you pile the ion thruster sets onto the motorized trolley in a derelict loading bay. I borrowed this from Eshe. I barely know how it works. They seem giddy at the idea of stealing the ship parts from Havenage. Isn't it just a trolley? Peak laughs. I guess so. I just find physical technology a little intimidating. They help you heave the thruster into position. My specialty was computer systems. I mostly worked on keeping the protocols that ran the refueling platforms from totally decaying due to lack of use. There's a load of platforms in orbit of the moon Hawthorne is on, and Cinder itself. Eshe and I ended up having to head out to them regularly to work on them. Sounds like hard work. Are you kidding? Peak smiles. That was the best job at Hawthorne. You get assigned a ship, you get to leave the colony for a bit. So much better than outpost maintenance or canteen work. The only reason we got assigned it was that Eshe's mother is the administrator of Hawthorne, and Eshe managed to get my name on the list, too. Peak looks for the trolley's ignition. Eshe is always saving me. They find the switch and hit it, and the trolley starts whining. Peak looks back and looks at the thrusters. Eshe will install these, and Briar is her baby, really. Peak looks toward the bay exit. Truth be told, I was surprised she could bring herself to take it from her mother. Losing a ship? That has to have hurt the colony. What is her mother like? Tough. You'd have to be to keep control of a services outpost with no services to provide. Peak looks away. It's a tough place overall, Hawthorne. And Eshe's mom? She likes it that way. Peak shuffles the trolley out of the bay and into the corridor. They'll manage without the Briar. No choice. Peak smiles. And I have to admit, I'd love to have seen her place when she saw that we had gone. Peak pauses. Don't tell Eshe that I said that. They walk on quietly, lost in their memories of Hawthorne. Okay, I think I can manage the rest. Peak brushes their hair with their face. You've done more than enough this cycle. Peak looks over the thrusters. Once these are fitted, the Briar will handle better than ever. You might even get a thank you from Eshe. Peak laughs. They head off into the corridor, the trolley whining its high-pitched whine. See you soon. Okay. And with possibly one day to spare. It is 3:30, so that is a good place for me to take a quick break. So I I'm still working on my overlay situation, so my break card is going to be a little sparse, but I'm just going to use the restroom, refill my water, and I would invite you to do whatever it is you need to take a break for yourself. Stretch, move around, cycle fluids, whatever it is. And then in a few minutes, we'll come back and play some more of Citizen Sleeper episode Flux. I don't know if this is close to the end of the Flux. One review that I saw said that it would take about 2 hours, and I don't know if we are on the faster end of that or slower, because I am reading the text on all the episode stuff, but we're also really powering through it. So, back in a couple minutes with more Citizen Sleeper. Hello, I'm back. We finished everything with 1 day to spare, I think. The screen is twitching a little bit. Are you getting that? Now I'm not getting it. Now let's see if that picks up again. She's gone, Sleeper. Peak is breathless and shaking. She started the run without us. Shit. Let's go. If we head with Corden now, Peak starts back up the corridor. They turn back. She has to make it, Sleeper. She has to. Well, we did all of the things. A shiver runs down your spine. Eshe, I hope you know what you're doing. Now Helene is going to be grumpy. I have to imagine. You arrive frantic and anxious at the Corden. Peak is nowhere to be seen. Then you hear footsteps hammering on the metal stairway Helene's drone led you through before, the one that leads up to the observation deck. You leap up the stairs 2 at a time and make it to the top, momentarily blinded by the light pouring into the observation deck. Hey, the Rising Tides! Good to see you. Though most recently I saw you in Meat Space, which was very fun. I hope you're having a good day. And we'll see if Helene shows up. What was she thinking? She was always planning this, I know it. They turn away. How could I have not seen it coming? There she is. Peak rushes to the wide window, leaning forward to catch a glimpse of the Climbing Briar's blue XPR livery against the black of the void. You spot the Climbing Briar, a glint of blue and white, and beside it the red glare of a tug's lights. The tug crew went with her. Peak smiles. I knew they'd keep their word. That'll help. Peak doesn't seem to hear you, but the idea of a crew backing Eshe up makes you smile. Maybe this thing will work. So, this happens regardless. This was because we got the tug crew. You watch as the Briar and its tug escort arc down the edge of the cordon, demarcated by the red lights of the perimeter system. So far, so good. The Briar would just look like another refugee being escorted into the cordon, at least, at a glance. Peak grips the rail as Eshe reaches the edge of the cordon, that invisible net of sensors splayed between drip ships and drones. Now let's hope that sensor spot triggered. You think back to the mess of systems you had to wade through to set it up, the delicate contingencies that you set up to trigger the sensor blackout at just the right moment. Without noise, without ceremony, the Briar slips through the cordon. You await the flickering of alarm lights, the swarming of drones, but nothing. Just another cycle, just another ship. Eshe is in. Both you and Peak let out the breath you've been holding, and laugh. How did she do it? Peak smiles, shaking their head. We did it. Peak smiles wider. Yes, we did. They laugh. You feel a little shaky from the tension, but Peak's ease helps you settle. You imagine Eshe, steely-eyed, in the pilot seat of the Briar, searching for a place to dock. Maybe being stubborn has its advantages. What now? As she finds a place to dock and unload as quietly as possible, they look out at the flotilla, and then she gets the hell out of there. You and Peak turn back to the window, looking for the Briar again amongst all the hulls, the calm fading as new worries settle in. You spot the Briar first this time, docking with the largest of the flotilla's ships, a vast converted tanker, half of its protective plates removed. You think about all the effort it must have taken to get that thing all the way here from the inner system. You watch the Briar, unable to get any sense of progress from its placid exterior. They'll be offloading everything now, Peak says, both assuring you and themselves that everything is going to plan. You think of all the supplies loaded into the Briar, how long the process of unloading them might take. The bay was packed, rammed with everything you could offer, and the thought of bringing all that to the flotilla makes you smile. You think of the reaction of the refugees, of the welcome they'll give Eshe as the bearer of such gifts. You even imagine a smile from Eshe as she is showered with thanks. You focus on that as you watch the Briar and continue the nervous wait for it to finish unloading. It's breaking off. Peak points at the Briar, and you see the puff of air and dust that accompanies an emergency depressurization. She must have ended things early, but why? Then you see them, the tugs closing in on the Briar. Havenage must have spotted the ship. You and Peak are up against the window again, willing the Briar a safe path out of the flotilla. Suddenly the Briar shifts in space, a blue blur between two holes. Peak whistles. Look at that! They smile at you. Looks like those upgrades we put together work. You watch as Eshe cuts through the crowded flotilla, the tugs not daring to follow her dangerous path, and peeling away. It's hard to keep track of the Briar, and suddenly you and Peak are searching the black for a sign. Where's she gone? Then all of a sudden she's out, blue against the black, pulling away from the cordon on a wide arc back from the station. A clean run. Peak cheers and smiles at you. We did it! She's out! They beam uncontrollably at you, the tension released. You find yourself smiling too, smiling at these two beautiful dorks and their beautiful ship. Then Peak is hugging you, squeezing you with all the nervous energy that had been building. Thank you, Sleeper. We did this together. They step back, still smiling. We did something. Come on, they rush out of the observation deck. Let's go meet her. Da-da-da-da. Alright, engineer +2. And here we go. You and Peak rush into the Briar, finding yourselves in a now empty bay. The change is a reminder of what you achieved, and looking around, you feel all the more satisfied. A hiss sounds at the far end of the bay, and Eshe enters, looking exhausted. Peak runs up to embrace her, but she sits down on the bay floor before they reach her. You did it, they sit beside her. Eshe, you were incredible. She smiles a small smile at this, laying her head on Peak's shoulder. You suddenly feel like you're intruding, seeing the two of them like this, quiet and content. Sleeper, Peak calls. Come on over. You cross the bay and sit beside them on the hard metal floor. Eshe, Peak asks, did you give the flotilla our chairs? They both burst out laughing at the ridiculousness of it all, at the exhaustion and the worry and everything else. You laugh too. It's impossible not to. And after a while, you all come to a stop. Peak wiping their eyes, and Eshe shaking her head. You would have loved to see it, Sleeper, Eshe says quietly. The welcome I got. They came to greet the ship once I docked, to offload the supplies. I told them I was coming, of course, as soon as I got inside the cordon. There were so many. Children, families, they were smiling at me, shaking my hand. Saul was there, Peak. And he's just as gruff as he sounds over comms. She smiles. They took it all, crate after crate, until the ship was emptied out. Eshe looks away. There were so many, and even with everything we managed to bring, they needed more. They made me promise I would try to come back. Eshe Peak shakes their head. You know we can't do that twice. Eshe stands up. What are we supposed to do? Wait for them to lift quarantine? She's angry again, that familiar tension rising in her voice. Peak tries to pull her back down. Sit, Eshe, and rest. You've done enough for today. Don't, Peak. I know my limits. Eshe hardens. Okay. Well, seeing as they didn't catch you, perhaps they will lift it. They know the flotilla poses no danger now. And if they can account for the extra load on the life support... Eshe walks away toward the ladder that leads into the upper part of the ship. I need to rest, Peak. She holds up a hand. Sleeper. Then she limps up the ladder, step by painful step. I'm afraid if you were expecting a change in Eshe's demeanor, Peak smiles at you. It's okay. Let her rest. Peak nods. I think I need some rest too. They put a hand on your shoulder and get up from the floor. We couldn't have done this without you, Sleeper. And I know those in the flotilla would thank you too. Go rest. Peak limps up the ladder too, leaving you alone on the metal floor of the bay. Your thoughts drift to all those people on the flotilla, sleeping and sitting on metal floors like this. Children, families, playing in cargo bays and repurposed fuel tanks. You know their story isn't over yet, and you look forward to meeting them. Quarantine will lift, and you feel more sure of this fact every moment, even though you aren't sure why. You lie back on the metal and stare at the ceiling. Was it Feng who told you Erlin said, the eye opens for us all? Maybe the old guy was right. A home for the lost. Like the idea of that. Maybe in time you can help make that a reality. But something's bothering you, a sliver of a thought, like a splinter you can't extract. Why are thousands of refugees coming here now? People don't abandon their homes for nothing. What wave is rushing through the system, and when will it reach the eye? You shudder on the cold metal floor and get up. Something is coming. You can feel it. This isn't over. think the DLC is over. Okay, yep, episode Flux, complete. Thank you for playing. The episodic story of the flotilla will continue in episode Refugee, coming October 2022. Okay. Ta-da! We did it! So, a bit under 2 hours for us, because we did it quickly. So, it's very fun to come back to the Eye. We didn't interact with the kind of same set of characters so much because I was really focused on the DLC stuff. I think if you were playing like a fresh save and this was more woven into your overall story, that would definitely be a different experience. But I have to imagine that this experience of going back just for the DLC is going to be pretty common, and the stuff is self-contained to itself. You know, it's your overall in this section. Here are the characters. You know, you're meeting 3 new people, which is not too many. Mostly interacting with the 2, at least the way that I did it. And that's that. So October is another, 2 months, month and a half. And I'll probably play that one when it comes out. And then maybe when the 3rd one comes out, I'll do a whole fresh run and we'll play everything integrated. But that is TBD. I'm going to say that this my streaming is supported by patreon.com/MichaelR. And I'm going to say to take a look at this tweet, because I am recruiting playtesters for the Genrenauts role-playing game. I'll go back. There we go. And what I'm looking for is people who can play in a campaign scale playtest game, including someone to GM. And I know that that's asking a lot, which is why I'm kind of saying this and repeating it a bunch so that I can cast a wide net. I have gotten some responses so far, so I'm very grateful for that. But I could certainly use a few more, because sometimes it's difficult to line everybody's schedules up, and I've tried to give scheduling options so that I can have an easier time figuring out whether we can put together a group where everybody can fit the same times. So if anyone who is watching live or otherwise can help signal boost that a bit, share that with TTRPG people you know who maybe would like to get involved in design in some fashion, or who like playtesting games. Anybody that has experience with Forge in the Dark games is especially welcome, because then there's not as much that's new and different to you. You can focus on what is different. So that's all pretty cool. And we have... Right now we're playing Fractal Spire on Speculate, as well as Valorword. And you can find my playlist with all of the Valorword videos on my YouTube, but I'm just going to go ahead and put that playlist link into the chat. So that is our game of Court of Blades, a game by a couple of Drakes, and Fractal Spire is our game of Girl by Moonlight, which is by Andrew Gillis. And I think I saw that Apocalypse Keys, a game by Ray Najati, is going to be crowdfunding very soon, and I'm excited about that, because I've really dug Ray's other games. And that's that. I'm going to be doing my craft chat at noon on Friday, not 2, because I have a thing at 3. And then we will try out Cult of the Lamb on Sunday. So that's that. Thank you to the Rising Tides and the Kids Are Asleep and Trivity Mats and anybody else who came by today. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you to all of the people who made this game, Citizen Sleeper. You're awesome. And thank you to the folks at the publisher. And I will see you all next time. And now, I make sure that my ending thing works. Bye.